Retail workers, what's the best threat you've ever received at work? Story 1, I was a manager of a clothing boutique in a mall. I got the gig through a friend who later quit, opening up his manager position for me. Anyways, it was cake. All I did was make the schedule and enter a code to approve returns. One day I'm walking the floor, and this lady flags me down. Son, does that young man have an earring in his ear? Yes, he does. I'd like to speak to the manager. Well, you're in luck. How can I help you? I just think that's very, showy. If you catch my drift, I'm afraid I don't, ma'am. If he's queer, he should just keep that to himself, and it's your job to make sure he doesn't come to work like that. I'm sorry to offend you. He isn't gay. He's not making a statement. Well, if you aren't going to do anything about it, it'll just everyone I know that there are faggots working here. And she left, and I barreled over with laughter. 6 months later, we went out of business. I guess she knew more people than I thought. Story 2, this story happened to my friend, and there were no real threats, just hilarity. My buddy was at a KFC in Chicago, and the lady before him, alone, ordered 2 buckets of chicken. The guy behind the counter asks, is this for here or to go? And she suddenly screams, you think I may sit here and eat all this chicken by myself? And he screams back, bitch, I don't know your life. Perfect response. Story 3, many years ago at Starbucks, a 45-ish businessman approaches me. Hey, how's it going? Customer, how's it going? This isn't a McDonald's. Okay, you will address me as sir and take my order like a professional. Do you understand me? Me, sarcastically, good day to you, sir. And welcome to the Starbucks Coffee Corporation. Where is our aim to... At this point, the guy is behind the counter and completely in my face, ready to throw down. I'm laughing, and the manager grabs him and escorts him to the door. Unlike most expelled customers, he never showed up again. Story 4, TLDR, pain in the customer comes unhinged, gets wake-up call, gets help. In my dark and sordid past, I worked at a Pizza Hut. There was this one guy who would send his teen son in to get their order. Invariably, they'd arrive early, and their order would not be ready yet. The son would leave the store, and the father would come in and start yelling about how lousy we were, never having a pizza done, etc. The same guy would get his pizza, take it home, and then call later saying we had messed up his order. My manager would always tell him that if he returned with a pizza, we would remake it for him. He'd always say that they ate it anyway, etc., but he'd want free pizza instead. My manager never gave in to that demand, but always told him that as long as he brought the bad pizza back, she'd make him another to replace it. After a few of these episodes, my manager and I developed a procedure to handle his orders. On his order, we would document when he called, how long we told him it would take, and we would add at least 15 minutes to his order time. When he came in, we would show him his pizza and make him confirm it was correct and to his satisfaction. While he stopped coming in, he would make his son pick up the pizza. We would go through the process with his son. The guy would still try to call in later and complain, so we started refusing to sell his family's order to anyone but him. One very busy Saturday, I am running the main register. He makes his order, comes in, and is waiting with everyone else. His turn comes. I retrieve his order, start showing it to him, and he starts in complaining loudly that we never get his order right. I ask him what is wrong with the pizzas in front of him. He doesn't answer, but continues to rant loudly about how we are the worst, etc. While he is ranting, I close up his pizza boxes and set them back on the warmer. He stops and looks at me. I then calmly tell him that since it is obvious that there is no pleasing him, I am not going to bother selling him the pizzas he ordered. He turns about 6 shades of purple, lunges at me, and then tries to climb over the counter and grab his pizzas off the rack. I step back, grab his pizzas, and hand them to a coworker and tell them to take his pizzas to the back and get my manager. The guy runs out the door, and all the other customers are just standing there wondering what they just witnessed. I call the next name and start selling pizzas again. Later, my manager comes to me and tells me she called the guy and told him he was banned from buying pizzas from us ever again. Well, about a month later, I'm running the register, call out a name, and the guy's teen son comes up to the register. He's his usual friendly self. I sell him his pizzas, but I notice he looks different. Prior to this, the kid would look like he'd been in a fight or was bruised in some way. This time he had no cuts, bruises, or band-aids on him. I didn't say anything. He took his pizzas and left for the next few weeks. We'd get an order for the family under the new name. We'd fill it. The kid would pick it up and pay for it. We never heard any complaints. ID, still showing the pizzas before I rang him up, had always be very happy and tell us the pizzas looked great, etc. Then early one afternoon, my manager asked me to show up a little early. She said there was a meeting I had to attend due to a customer requesting a meeting with both of us. The request had come through our corporate office. I get to work. My manager tells me that the guy had called corporate and demanded a meeting be set up. Corporate had talked to my manager, and she had filled him in on his ordering habits, etc. Her boss then said he would attend the meeting too. She told me to keep an open mind, allow her to do her job, and see what happens. The guy shows up, has his wife with him and his teen son. My manager introduces her boss to the guy. He introduces his wife and kid to us. Then my manager asks, "So what can we do for you?" He asked me if I remember the last time he and I talked. I nodded. He goes on to say that it was very memorable to him also. He said his actions had scared him and made him take a good long look at himself. He said that, long story short, he had gotten help and was there to apologize to me for the way he had acted. I just stood there. I didn't know what to say. He said what he was doing was something that he felt he needed to do. Up to that night, his life had been out of control, and that he had almost lost his family over the way he had been. His wife thanked us, and he shook my hand, and my manager said some things, excused me, and I headed into the back of the store to prepare for my shift. She later filled me in on the rest of her conversation. After he left that night, had gone home without the pizzas. After my manager had called and told him he was banned, his wife packed up her stuff and left him, telling him that until he got help, he could forget about having either of them in his life. So, I figure it was her giving him an ultimatum more than what went on in our store that gave him good reason to do something about his problem. Story 5, I had a lady call in, and she just started screaming obscenities at an associate, telling us we're all kinds of horrible people. And she's going to SUE us because she was in the store yesterday and bought a pack of highlighters. Then apparently she fell asleep for only 10 minutes, and her dog ate them. And now he's dying? Yep, she was going to sue the manager because according to her, her dog was half brain dead now, and all it does is run in circles. The associate finally was able to transfer her to a manager, but she just continued yelling obscenities and threatening to sue. So, of course, the manager countered with, first of all, that's really nothing you can sue US for, considering we didn't make the product, nor did we feed it to your dog. And secondly, if your dog is sick and or dying, the first thing you need to do is get him to a vet. The lady, of course, thought nothing of this and threatened to hire a lawyer. But first, she was going to bring the dog into the store so we could see what we had done to him, and so that we could feel the guilt of our sin. And if he died first, she actually threatened to throw the dead dog at her manager. I was so disappointed when she never showed up. Story 6. So, I work at the front desk of a small transportation company and basically hired security in that I screen passengers before they get in our vehicles. This guy comes up and asks for a ticket. I give him the rundown, and I see he has a 15-inch serrated blade in plain sight. So, I tell him, "Sir, I'm going to need to confiscate that weapon." Suddenly, he gets all defensive and says, "But this is an artifact of my people." I tell him, "Sir, that is a 15-inch serrated blade. I can't let you on the transport with that." Next, he calls me a racist like I don't hear that like 50 times a day. He then tells me he doesn't understand why I'm treating him like a criminal. This is where I start losing my patience. I tell him, "Sir, you try to bring a 15-inch serrated blade onto public transport again." He calls me a racist. Finally, after arguing with him back and forth, he finally agrees to hand over the blade. Turians, it's never the Hanner, the Drell, the Elcor, Asari, or Solarians that start arguing with me. Always Turians. I'm currently working in an art supply store that isn't open until this Thursday. We've been in store since the 4th of February setting it up, and people always try to come inside, ignoring the 3 giant coming soon signs and the banner. Most people get to the automatic doors, realize they want to open, look around, and see the signs, then leave. Well, it was about 9:01 p.m. We close at 9 regularly. And some shows up and knocks on the door. I pry the doors open and tell him they're closed. He says no. I tell him, "Only take a minute, open her back up." I say, "No, sir, we're literally closed for the month. What about all this on the shelves?" You mean the 13 of the store that's stocked? "Yeah, we're in the process of opening this store. The sign says February 25th. Give me the store phone number. I'm calling your manager." "Me, the store isn't open. The phone doesn't work, but my manager is in the back. I could go get her." "No, boy, I'm dealing with you." Me, "While we're closed." Threatening voice, "Just you wait, I'm coming back." Me, "But that's what I've been trying to get you to do." Guy goes to his car and peels out and leaves. Story 7, a disgruntled timeshare owner faxed a death threat to my office in Sedona, Arizona, complete with the date and time he planned to come to the office with his various firearms to discuss his complaints. To his credit, he was a man of his word and showed up promptly at the specified time. He received a sentence of 6 to 18 months. Story 8, I worked at a Burger King when I was 16 where we got crazy amounts of buses, could tell 100 stories, but only got threatened once though. We had this special for Lent where you could get 2 fish sandwiches for 3, but you had to get the 2. If you got 1 or 1 a meal, it was like 2.20 or something for the odd sandwich. Anyways, this fat ass on a Greyhound bus came in and was bitching about everything. She wanted mustard and tartar sauce on her sandwiches, tried it later, blech, and she told me like a bazillion times to make sure it got it right, because none of you lazy ever gets them right. Anyways, she orders 3 of these mustard and tartar sauce monstrosities, and I told her that the odd one would be like $2.20, but she told me she didn't care. So obviously after getting her order, she comes up and starts screaming that I cheated her. I told her I had not and offered to ask the store manager, who was my cousin, 21 years older than me. Don't ask to deal with the problem anyways. She told me literally that the customer is always right, and if I didn't give her money back, she'd jump over the counter, and up being 16, I told her to go ahead and try it. So she actually did, only she was so fat she couldn't really jump, and so she threw her empty water bottle at me and almost missed, even though she was like 5 feet away. Then she sort of rolled over the counter and put up her dukes. At this point, I was laughing my off because it was so awesome with her lard rippling down from her fat ass arms. My cousin told someone else to call the cops, told me to take a break in the back and get some food if I wanted, then told Lardface exactly what would happen if I sued her for assault, since I was a minor, and my cousin could prove that I did nothing actionable. Even better, everyone on the bus had to wait for the cops to get there, because the bus driver had to stay to report to the cops what had gone down. It took about an hour for Greyhound to get another bus there to pick up the other passengers, so needless to say, there were plenty of volunteers to tell the cops about Lardface's stupidity. TLDR told Fat Ass that she'd have to pay extra for buying an odd number of sandwiches, got called a liar, assaulted, and almost got to beat up said Fat Ass and get away with its self-defense minor. FW edit fix stupid errors. I work at a retailer that sells popular body products. Fragrances come and go. That's just how it is. They can't keep them all forever. Well, sometimes people get so upset when I tell them their fragrance is no longer in stores. However, most of them are online. Lady comes in today and demand a fragrance we don't have in stores. I very politely tell her we do not carry it in stores, but she can still find it online. She loses it. She starts screaming about how I am incompetent and how she should be able to buy in store if it is online. Keep in mind, she is yelling at me like screaming over a scent of lotion. I tell her most online-only products are marked that way, and I give her a customer service card because she is so irate and this company is obsessed with making customers happy. I tell her she can have 20 off her purchase. She screams at me and tells me if I don't give her money to cover shipping, she's going to make me sorry. I tell her I can't just take money from the store. She says, not from the store. You should give it to me. She wanted me to hand her money from my own pocket to cover shipping. She actually said, I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I basically just stared at her. She said she was coming back, and I might want to reconsider. TLDR, customer demands. I pay her shipping costs for an only available online product from my own pocket. Story 9, I didn't have any of this guy's fave ciggies, so he gets pissed off and threatens to jump the counter and bash me. I just said, don't worry about jumping. They'll just open the door and let you in. Let's see what you've got. He declined. Story 10, I work at a smoke shop in a college town. All in all, the customers are pretty cool. Get a few tweakers every now and then looking for crack pipes and such. So in our shop, you're not allowed to refer to a bong as a bong. It must be called a water pipe because bong implies drug use. And yes, I know what people are doing with them. It's just the hoop we have to jump through. I operate on a 3-strike policy. If I warn you 3 times, I will ask you to leave. I had a guy that just wouldn't stop saying bong and kept making really blatant drug references and asking me where he could score. When I finally had enough and asked him to leave, he started backpedaling, saying that he would behave. I told him again he needed to leave as I could not sell him anything because he made it abundantly clear that he was going to use it for pot. His attitude changed as he pulled out a police badge. The guy wrote me and the shop a ticket for selling paraphernalia, which was like $2,000. Fortunately, we have cameras with audio that caught the whole thing on tape. The charges got dropped, and the guy was supposedly suspended. Now the cops around town love our shop and actually go out of their way to make sure everything is cool after hours. Story 11, I worked at an ice rink in a pretty affluent area up until a year or 2 ago. Friday and Saturday nights, the rink had free skate nights that mostly drew the middle school crowd, as there was a public middle school next door. These are 11 to 14-year-olds with the guys dressed gangster and the girls in bicycle shorts, push-ups, and tank tops in an ice rink. Refer to the rest of the post as prostitutes. The rink has a city police officer come to run security on the place because these kids sneak off into first aid rooms to do whatever. Some of the things I've dealt with, I was working with a very passive coworker one night in the concession stand. He was leaning on the counter on his elbows when 2 kids 13 to 14 walk up, pull their wallets out, and proceed to see who has a bigger wad of cash on them. Both had $60 on them. Our food isn't cheap, 3-ish for fries, 2-ish for hot chocolate, but not a 60 night. One of them emerges victorious from the money count and presses the wad of cash in my coworker's face. You like how that smells? Kid got thrown out later that night for making it of himself regardless. Management knew who he was. Self-entitled prats reaching over the counter and stealing stuff on display. Candy, whipped cream dispensers, dipping sauce cups, anything they could reach. I've had prostitutes come to the counter and try and push their A-cups up to get free. Edit if I think of any more ill at him here. Busy studying for a test. Story 12 customer said he would have me unemployed by breakfast time. My manager asked me to apologize to him to keep him happy. I refused out of principle. Nothing happened. I had his phone and internet cut off with no chance of restoration for a week by the time I finished my shift. I had his power cut off at random a year later. I had his phone and internet cut off again another 6 months later. Story 13, I worked at this terrible call center before the awesome job I have now. They sold everything from roll-a-hose, perfect pancake, tourist pamphlets, and Girls Gone Wild, basically any infomercials product. They were contracted by hundreds of companies, and when the call came, the number dial would bring up whatever product they were calling for on the computer. I cannot count the number of times people would and ask me if I was the one in the pink top they were watching on the GGW commercial. I had a few people call just to say I'm going to kill you. By this time, I was completely indifferent and had only apathy for them. Of the several weird things that happened while there, the one I won't forget was this guy that would call and ask about a spray that you were supposed to squirt into your mouth, and it would help prevent snoring. Never snore. At the time, the product was no longer available for sale through my call center, but if someone called about it, we could offer some very limited information. To buy it, the guy had to call a different 800 number. The first time I spoke to this guy, he asked questions about the product and how it worked. Seemed totally normal, confused customer. A few weeks later, I got a call about the same product. This was weird because we almost never got calls for old products, let alone the same product more than once, especially since the commercials weren't playing anymore. After answering some slightly odd questions about the application of a spray in the mouth, the call ended, and I wondered, is that the same guy from before? The third time he called a few weeks later, he finally revealed enough for me to get what he was going for. This time he told me how his girlfriend snores, and he wanted to use the spray to help when they sleep. He said he was worried, though, since it was sprayed in the mouth, that she would, in the back of her mouth. From there on, he kept trying to get me to say gag, and he was getting off on the word. That's when the previous calls clicked in my mind, and I understood that his whole point to calling before was just to get a girl to talk about gagging. It was really odd that I happened to get him 3 times, considering how many reps they were taking calls, made me wonder how many times he called. Years ago, when I worked at a department store, I had a lady try to return something that was not from our store. It was the store brand from a different department store. It wasn't a very heated exchange, although I had to call a manager to repeat what I had said. We couldn't take it back. It was from XXX store. The lady left, and I thought it was over until I went to lunch, no longer wearing my name tag, just regular clothes. I'm not sure if she was waiting for me in the mall or if she had just happened to see me while still shopping. But to me, it doesn't matter. She approached me and proceeded to cuss me out up and down, call me every name in the book, and then shove me for not taking back an item of clothing. Mall security escorted her out. Story 14, a few years ago, I worked as a cashier at a grocery store. This woman comes up to the register one day with a bottle of vitamins and demands that I give her a refund. In order for me to do that, she must have a receipt, and I need a manager to clear it. So I ring up the manager, ask for a receipt, and she keeps telling me, I bought this yesterday. I forgot my receipt. Just give me my refund. I keep persisting, telling her I'll need a receipt, and by the time the manager gets up to my cash, the woman is furious. All of a sudden, she goes, "These vitamins give you herpes. They give you herpes. All your products are poisonous." She storms down one aisle and tosses all sorts of products on the floor. My manager had to restrain her until security was able to her out. Story 15, one day, while working in an adult clothing store, I noticed a 2-year-old walking around with one of the hooks we used to get shirts for high shelves. I walked up to the little boy, his mother was right behind him, and said I was sorry, but I had to take it away because I didn't want him to hurt himself. His mother, ignoring me, told him that if he hurt himself, the store would be liable and they would get lots of money. I was so shocked I just walked away. Story 16, a little bit late to this, and my story will most likely get buried. But it is worth writing anyways. I used to work at the front desk of a hotel in a seasonal town. Winter was slow, but also when a lot of insanity happened. I was up at the front desk when this middle-aged man comes storming through the door and flings his final receipt on the counter in front of me. He demands to know why we have been charging his credit card for the past 2 days when he checked out Sunday morning. It was a Tuesday afternoon. He is very angry and irate, and even now, close to hyperventilating, I checked the computer and see that his room had not been checked out and that, indeed, his card had been charged both that Monday and that morning. I asked if anybody else had been in the room with him, to which he responded no. I call up to the room and a woman answers. I requested she come to the front desk. Well, when she shows up, it becomes obvious what happened. He had picked up a prostitute and had left Sunday morning before she had. As the room was registered to 2 people, she was able to call down to the front desk and extend to the credit card on file each day. The man then becomes explosive and threatens to sue me, not the hotel, but me for the money he was charged. I, nicely as possible, explained to him that on the registration card he signed it clearly states he is responsible for the guests in his room and that he had previously admitted he just left and did not check out of the front desk. Then he threatens to call the cops. Hey, race the best part. The cops show up. The angry man demands that the prostitute pay for the charges he incurred. The woman claims she didn't have the money and had to call her manager. So in a short time, we have 2 cops, 1 angry man, 1 prostitute, and 1 pimp. He looked scary sitting in the conference room of our front office. The pimp ended up forking over the cash, and I kind of felt bad because that woman looked really scared. The angry man looked at me and said, "Told you so." The cops left without arresting anybody. Fun times. Story 17. I worked in the electronic department in a very conservative city. It's primarily a military town. I was talking about the FM transmitter in an MP3 player and started to say, "So you can pick up, say NPR," or before I was cut off by the guy yelling about how NPR is socialist and that I should watch my mouth in this town. Story 18. Ill, got you like a fish from a heroin addict. While I was working at a Taco Bell, while I was 16, he was seriously up and thought I had sold him something that made his sister overdose. I walked in the back office and called the cops. It was scary. Story 19. I'm going to come down to that call center and rip your face off, to which I replied, "Good luck, sir," and then hung up, as we could if we got threatened. He lived a few states away. I was amused. Story 20. I worked at Game Crazy at the time. It was near Christmas, and a woman came in and bought a Guitar Hero 3 bundle. Fast forward 3 days, man and woman come in to return the bundle because he didn't want it. He was very thugged out. Says, "Yo, man, I'm low on dough right now. When is this refund going to credit back in my account? Can I get cash?" I informed him that I could not give him cash, as he paid with his card. I said that it could be anywhere from 1 to 3 business days for it to credit back to his account, but to make sure he checks the balance before spending. He complained about needing gas, but there was nothing I could do. Next day, less than a week before Christmas, huge line waiting by gifts. Phone rings. It's him. And he's angry. "Man, I thought you said ID. Get my money back. I'm sorry, sir." "Who is this?" "Bitch, I came up there yesterday to refund Guitar Hero, and you said ID. Get my money back. You will get your money back, sir. It will take anywhere from 1 to 3 days. You said ID. Get it immediately. I bought gas after I left, and now my account is all up. Cause of you." "Sir, I never said that you would get it immediately. You're really starting to owe me OFF. I ought to come up there and beat you." By this time, everyone in line had noticed that this guy was full-on yelling at me over the phone. "You could, but you just refunded something here. Your name and address are on file, sir." "Well, then you better pay me back yourself." "I can't do that, sir. I told you that you should check your balance before using your card. It isn't my fault you overdraft. I'm going to be up there too. Whoop, you're in a minute, boy. Unless you have my money if you come up here, I'm going to call the police." He hangs up. Everyone in line is really nice. Tells me not to worry about it. He never showed up. At some point in the conversation, I told him that if he didn't stop yelling, I would hang up, but he wouldn't stop. Crazy people. I worked at a used clothing store where people would come in to sell their clothes to us, but we obviously were very picky about what we took. This created many angry customers. I have 2 favorites. The woman that in our dressing room despite us is one. Another woman tried on all the new bathing suits with her period, so they all had blood stains. Quite a bit of effort just for us not taking some of their stained clothes. We also never sold bathing suits again, so the threat worked. Story 21. I refused service to someone for not having ID. He threatened to rip my mustache off of my face. I laughed and winced at the same time. Still makes me wince to this day. Story 22. Some lattice 12 or 13-year-old kid opened a can of silly string and sprayed it all over an aisle. I led the kid over to the register to ring him up for the silly string, and his mom comes out of nowhere, starts yelling about our poor customer service, and assures me that if I ever try to intimidate her baby again, that he had an older brother who would be paying me a visit. I laughed and told her to get lost. Story 23. Shopping on Black Friday. Stupid to begin with. I was holding a pair of speakers, last set on the shelf. A middle-aged lady tried to grab the box out of my hand. I'm stauncher than a woman, so I just shook her off and walked away with the speakers in tow. 2 minutes later, I was approached by a Best Buy super cop followed by the above-listed psychopath. She told him I jacked the speakers from her. After some huffing and puffing, the kindly fellow agreed to look at the camera to sort the whole thing out, brought us to the back and everything. She agreed to the whole bit. Watched herself try to steal the speakers right out of my hands. Still, she says, "Well, you're both just harassing me. I wouldn't be surprised if you're not together," and storms out, all for a set of speakers costing $50. Luckily, I got a deal from the manager for putting up with this crazed lunatic. Drop total price on everything $25. People in retail, God bless, especially with meth heads nowadays, they gotta be fun. Story 24. I was working in a food avenue at a Target when this lady comes up with her toddler. As she's deciding which horrible item to devour, her child grabs one of the brownies that were sitting in front of the counter. I mentioned that her child is grabbing for it. She pays no mind. Finally, the toddler opens the 3. $99 package and takes a bite, makes a EU face, and proceeds to grab another. At this point, I politely ask the woman if her child would like anything else to go with the brownie on the floor, to which the woman looks at me and says, "Well, I'm not responsible for that." Me, "Actually, ma'am, you are. It's $3.99, and it looks like he's going for another one." "Mother, you can't expect me to pay for that. It was open when I got here, me, ma'am. They're sealed packages, and I watched him take a bite of it." "Mother, well, you didn't even warn me. I demand to speak with your manager." The Food Ave manager was standing just out of sight, but saw the entire transaction, and she was in stitches. My manager walks forward, and the mother of the toddler demands that she be released from paying for the brownie. Of course, my manager is disinclined to acquiesce her request, and she storms out. Ass's protection stops her before she hits the door. Needless to say, at that point, she made a scene. Story 25. A woman was trying to return Christmas gifts without a receipt, and we couldn't give her cash, just a gift card or an exchange. She said that wasn't acceptable because she didn't like our clothes and never shopped there. I knew her DM would say no to a cash override because of all the thefts in the area at that time. I watched him say not to an identical situation earlier that day. So I apologized, but said that was all I could do for her. So she stamped her foot, saying, "They'll never shop here again," and everyone at the service desk laughed while I pointed out, "You never have, so I guess that's okay." She turned an odd shade of purple and left. Story 26. Lady came to the gas station I work at and get to fill up. I tell her how much it is, and she holds out a debit card. "Oh, you'll have to come in for that." "No, I don't. You have the portable machine." "Oh, sorry. We haven't had that for ages. You have to come in. I was here just the other day." "And use it." "No, you didn't. We haven't had it since July." "Well, I'm never coming here again." "OH, no. Not Lady IV, never seen before." "Not you. Please, NO." Story 27. I worked in a clothing store several years back, and some guy was screaming at the top of his lungs as well as throwing insults at me and my shift supervisor, i.e., calling me an incompetent and her a fat ugly all in front of other customers because we couldn't redeem a coupon. We asked him to leave, and he threatened to call mall security on us, at which point I turned around, phone in hand, and said, "Don't worry, I've already taken care of that." He and his haggard excuse for a wife left immediately. Story 28. There was food left out on a table, and a customer had spilled a drink on the floor. We had someone already getting the mop from the back, and they were going to clean the table. A woman came up to me and angrily said, "There's a table that is trashed with food out on the table, and it's been there forever." It had been there for about 5 minutes. "Yes, ma'am, we know about it. We actually have somebody coming out to clean it up right now." And then suddenly, this is a Christian organization. What do you think corporate would say if they had come down here and seen that mess? People are insane. Hey, race, another big lady appears. Angry tone, "You really need to do something about your entryway floors." I slipped and almost fell on my way out. Angry tone turns into a third grader sob story. "I already have a hurt back. I could have fallen and made it worse. I could have broke it. You guys really need to get new floors or something or keep them dry." Turns around mumbling and crying on her way out. Facepalm, "It's raining outside." "No, it's going to be wet. There's a wet floor sign right there. There's a rug that you can walk on instead of stepping onto the tile." Story 29. I am a supervisor at a gym on my college campus. We don't allow people to play with footballs inside the gym, as there's too much going on, and when it's busy, an errant football could easily do some damage to the many people running around the track. One very tall, muscled man didn't like being told to put his football away. He demanded to be shown where it was written "No footballs," so I pointed to the sign on the wall that is written "No footballs." That still didn't work, so he asked to speak to his supervisor. He then didn't like to be told that I, the 52 girl in front of him, am the supervisor. So after yelling at me for a long time and getting nowhere, he told me that he is practiced in mixed martial arts, and, as if to prove his point, kicked his leg up high near my face, barely missing my nose. He then asked what time the gym closed, so I told him 11 p.m. His reply to that was, "They'll be back then." I was still fairly amused, but my coworkers who had been looking on were not, so they insisted we call the police and have them us to our cars after work that night. Haven't heard from him since.